Salutations! Soapboxing4Rinoa, episode 7. This one's going to be more of a personal review of a fairly new console that's hitting the streets, or at least the streets of those like games from a certain company, the Neo Geo X Gold. Now this, of course, has been out since December of 2012, a week before Christmas. I would have gotten it back then were it not for the fact I was saving up for the recording equipment that I use now, and I just forgot about it after a while when newer games for the PS3 and 3DS are coming out. Then I check up on Fighter's Generation one day to hear that there's finally going to be more games for the system. I had $200 saved up by then and easily got it. I guess there weren't many of them sold at the time. They're more of a warehouse item, I guess. Thankfully, because of that, I got the limited edition that comes with the free expansion card with a 2D fighter called Ninja Masters on top of the 20 games you get already installed onto the system. Full list in the description below. Now, this system has two ways to play. The handheld, which you can get alone for $120, which looks a little too wide to really fit in your pocket unless you got really deep pockets. Mine deep enough, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the money. The button placement's weird to grasp for me at first because I'm used to fighting games where the light punch, or A in Neo Geo's case, is on the square button of my PS controller, so it's like up. So it's like the closest one to me. It's like the closest to the right hand. So the A button is on the Neo Geo X Gold is on the handheld part is the bottom one, and it goes from like A to D in kind of a lightning bolt kind of order. There's 4 shoulder buttons on the handheld, but all the L1 and L2 buttons do is switch the screen format between 4:3 normal and 16:9 widescreen. The R1 and R2 buttons act as your pause. There's still a start button, but that's just to start the game, obviously, which, again, not being your pause takes some getting used to. In fact, the only way you can pause is the buttons I mentioned, or the menu button, which doesn't have a reset option if you mess up, just a play or unpause and a quit option to take you back to the main menu. The audio levels are pretty good for a handheld. Everything came out really good. Graphically, it looks sexy as hell, like right out of the arcade, maybe even a little better. Any game that required mashing, like 3 Count Bout, I couldn't get anywhere with that. So, certain games are kinda unplayable. It gets about 3 to 4 hours on a fully charged battery. Okay, that's the handheld. For the full $200, you're going to get a big console that plugs into your TV by way of either HDMI or AV cable. It also acts as the docking station for the handheld, which charges the battery and lets you basically play the handheld on the TV by way of an arcade stick. You only get one with the full deal. It's another $60 if you want 2 sticks. I've played enough of Fatal Fury Special to know if something looks washed out color-wise or a little too bright on the TV. Yes, the handheld does have a brightness option in case the screen's too dark or anything. I guess, again, PlayStation spoiled me, since I gotta get up to push a menu button on the console when I want to switch games rather than just have a menu button on the stick itself. It also takes a little longer to boot than you might think. Nowhere near as bad as the original Neo Geo home console load times, thankfully. Personally, playing a Tetris-esque game using an arcade stick feels more than a little weird to me. And there's a lack of free play, sort of. Certain games like KOF 95 and Alpha Mission 2 give you a set number of credits to complete the game from start to finish. After that, game over, you gotta start all over again. I've heard that there are some audio issues and some screen tearing, so obviously far from perfect right now. I haven't really experienced any of that myself, so for the most part, it's basically like the old Neo Geo home system, but way less expensive and way faster load times. There was room for improvement. More games either in 5 3-game cards or one big 15-game card. That list also in the description. But it also gives us fixes to audio, control input, and like the original home console, the ability to save your gameplay in a way to circumvent the limited credit situation. It works for pre-existing and newer games, save for Ninja Masters. You also get a new rocket cable that acts as your update on one switch and then later becomes a separate charger just for the handheld. I'd say splurge and get the arcade experience on your TV if you can afford it. Just my personal opinion. When I got the update, I did notice a pretty significant change in controls. I could do moves way easier. Well, as easy as someone who's using an arcade stick and is not as used to it as some. Again, the change was noticeable. The pictures still look sort of blurry, and before the volume was like way too loud. Now it's like way too soft. I have to turn the TV up to like twice as high as what I would normally for any other console. All in all, the question you're now asking is this worth the money? Maybe. It's mostly nostalgia factor, and it might not be for everybody. All in all, I'm glad I waited till I knew more about the system and knew that fixes were going to be made, so I'd be ready for that when they came. As it stands right now, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Great library, ability to save after your game over. If you're a fan, like real diehard Neo Geo fan, and are good with an arcade stick, unlike me at the moment, pick it up. Otherwise, I'd just settle for a better console. I got it because I was hoping I'd finally get to play Gato and see what other titles for games that the PS2 didn't bring over here. So yeah, it's my review.